those kind of things. I know you don't want to agree with what happened in that case, but this isn't about that. This is about the information in this report. Is that correct?
Okay. I don't understand what you're asking then.
So I don't want to argue about the facts of what happened in that case with Mr. Gildner. I'm asking you if the dates in the report that show when things happened and what the charges were and how those charges were resolved, if you have some dispute about the factual information.
I didn't solve it.
Okay, again, I'm not gonna, it's not what this is about. All right, I'm satisfied that the prior criminal history for Miss Stefan is correct. Miss Stefan, you don't agree with what's written in terms of the.
I was never punching or kicking her.
Okay.
I was being dragged around by my hair and tackled to the ground, being called a bitch and a whore.
Okay.
When I got up and I called the police.
Okay. Mr. Trush, are you aware of any factual information contained within the report? I understand that Miss Stefan contests what's in the police report and what's reflected, and she doesn't agree with that information. But are you aware of any factual information in the report that's not correct?
So I guess what I would indicate is I think she does have an ability to obviously give her version of events when she has the ability to allocate. In terms of things that I would indicate to the court that are incorrect, one, obviously the jail credit needs to be updated. It's currently at 3 days. I think the probation department actually agrees with me that 20 is the right number, or I should say I've done my math right this time. Correct, Judge. In addition to that, they list that there's one prior felony conviction. It's probably splitting hairs. I think that's factually inaccurate. The felony conviction occurred after this. So again, it's probably splitting hairs, but I don't think it's properly called prior.
Okay, Mr. McDowell.
I guess, yeah, I don't have any objection.
Okay.
I guess I understand what he's saying. Usually you just put the record down right. There's no scoring anyways, but obviously I wouldn't have scored it if this was a felony, but.
Okay.
Could change that to 0.
All right. Any other corrections, Mr. Trush?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Cope, do you have any victims that wish to address the court today?
She is present. I do not think she wants to speak.
Okay. Ma'am, can you just tell me your name for the record?
My name is Mary.
Oh, thank you. I just want to make sure I know who you are. Ms. Koch, anything that you would like to say for allocation?
You know, I was looking at my notes for Miss Stefan, and I actually went back to my last case with her, and it says Judge Mertz sentenced the defendant. He gave her 5 days in jail and held 25 days in abeyance. Thinks she should work on her CMH and her recovery. And we talked about those issues in that case. Miss Stefan has a really hard time acknowledging the things that she does wrong and has a tendency to always blame the other person. It's been that way in every case I've had with her. You know, she's not very old. She does have some, from what I can tell from her records, some mental health history, whether she wants to address it. Her attitude towards Mr. McFalda is, you know, I'll come up there if I can. I don't need these things. So I really don't know the answer if she doesn't want to work on the problems. I mean, she entered a plea. It was difficult. The court was there. You know, she changes her mind. We were headed all set for trial. I honestly think it was a great idea for her to take a plea because I think the likelihood of conviction was high and she would have had a significantly higher recommendation if she had been convicted as charged, or at least in the principal charges. I've tried to give her some breaks in the past. She even got a pretty good break in this case. I really don't know what to do with her. I think the recommendation is appropriate. I don't think she's necessarily a very good candidate for probation. Thank you.
So, Your Honor, I think there are several important things to consider here. at first blush, I look at the recommendation here, and it seems strange to me. We have a recommendation that's essentially asking the court for a straight jail sentence on a person who has only had one prior probationary sentence and successfully completed it. Not only successfully completed it, was discharged early from probation. So from that standpoint, the recommendation seems kind of strange. Now, I certainly can understand why that recommendation may be made. I also think it's important to recognize Miss Stefan struggles with the court stuff. And I say that, we spend all day in court, right? For me to stand in front of the judge and speak and to address some of these issues is not a big deal. I do it all the time. I understand how to do it, understand what to say, what not to say. I think what we see from her when she gets into court is a trauma response. And I don't know where the trauma is. I don't know the answer to that. But it's not normal, right? It's not normal to be in court and be asked a direct question and not be able to answer it. And again, I don't know what the answer is, but it's certainly not something that we typically see. I tend to agree with Ms. Koch, where I think there's probably some mental health things going on there. Because again, we process plenty of cases, and in the vast majority of those, the defendant is able to articulate, right? Whether they articulate they want a trial, whether they articulate they want a plea, or even in the scenarios where it's difficult. Because I recognize that, we say, oh, you want to tender a plea or you want to go to trial, and that's probably not really the right way to phrase it in either scenario. I don't know that I've had many clients who want to come in and tender a plea or want to go to a trial, but those are the choices they have. I think what we see from Miss Stefan is when she's faced with those choices, essentially two bad choices, right? Two things that are not good for her. She freezes and she can't cope with it. She can't react. And then we see the inappropriate behaviors arise from there. I say all that to the court because at one level, it would make perfect sense to place her on a term of probation. She's been successful at that in the past. At the same time, I can certainly understand that on its face, it would appear that placing her on probation may be setting her up to fail. There's instability with her ability to get up to the court to report, and she identified that. Again, did she identify it in the way that I would have wanted her to say it? No, but I think she identified that. So I really don't know what to suggest to the court here in terms of how to handle it. I could see a straight jail sentence and could see benefits to Miss Stefan from that type of sentence. I also, from sort of the raw facts here, could see a primarily probation-based sentence. I would suggest to the court in any event that I do agree with the prosecutor. I hope Ms. Stefan pursues counseling through CMH or some other avenue. Because again, I don't think the behavior that we're seeing at times is normal responses. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Stefan, anything that you wanted to say there?
I already said something. I didn't punch and kick her hair. I did start with an argument, and I started packing my stuff to leave. And she was sitting outside on the porch, and I was standing in the door behind her talking to her. She got mad. She got up. She grabbed me by the top of my head. She threw me on the ground outside, jumped on top of me, and started screaming about how I was a bitch and I was a whore. Started making accusations to me against my cousin. So we kind of laid there in the grass for a while until somebody showed up and hosed us down with a hose to get us to separate. I didn't have her hair in my hand, she had my hair. And after that, I got up and I went in the house and I locked all the doors and kept myself inside until I could figure out what to do. I called several people, including her boyfriend, because he was the only other person that lived there that I knew who to call. And he was taking too long to get home from work, and that's when I ended up calling the cops. But I was not punching and kicking her. We did get into an argument over something because that was the second time I went to the police that day over an incident. And it wasn't even the first time that week that she had put her hands on me. Earlier in the week, she was drunk and she was screaming at me about all sorts of things in the middle of the night for at least 3 hours. This wasn't the first time that it happened, and that's when I ended up calling.
All right, well, I read through the report. I've listened to what you had to say here, what the lawyers had to say. I'm familiar with you and your circumstances. You've been in front of me before. Separate assaultive matter. The thing that I have a hard time with, it seems based on your behavior that there's some mental health issues here going on. But it's hard for me to tell how much of that and how much of your actions are caused by mental health issues, including your behavior in court, and how much of it is just you denying responsibility for things, you acting out and then wanting to blame
I'm not
people
denying
for it.
responsibility. I wouldn't have called the police if I didn't need help with something.
Well, you just denied responsibility here for everything. And you're continuing to deny responsibility for past incidents that were convicted of.
That weren't true.
And I don't know how much of that is attributable to some kind of mental health issues again, and how much of it is attributable to you just wanting to live in your own world and pretend that the things you do didn't actually happen. And how much you want to try and play games with the court to see how long you can drag things out and continue to avoid responsibility. And maybe it's some combination of those two things put together. I can tell you this, that you've amassed a record of assaultive offenses, both here and in other jurisdictions.
Which were dismissed.
You've been sentenced to 45 days in jail one time, 90 days in jail another time.
I never spent 45 days in
And so, in my view, we need to have progressive penalties. I don't think probation is the right thing for you. I agree with Mr. Truce generally, somebody with this record, probation might be appropriate, but given that you're engaging in assaultive offenses, given your behavior in court, given your behavior while on probation the last time, even if you did successfully complete it, I think the longer you go, the less probation is going to be a good option for you, and it's likely, as was said here, going to set you up for failure. So I think what you can expect if you continue to engage in assaultive behavior is more and more jail time, and eventually you're going to find yourself.
I don't have the right to defend myself, and I don't have the right to call the police because I get in trouble
So
for calling the police.
what I'm going to sentence you to
When I'm
here,
assaulted.
which I think is a fair sentence, is 6 months in the Crawford County Jail. You have credit for 20 days served. Court is going to impose a crime victim's assessment of $130, court costs of $325, attorney fees of $350, and $160 state costs. You do have the ability to seek an appeal of this sentence. Because this is a misdemeanor, there are no written appellate rights. If you wanted to file for an appeal, you would have to do that within the next 21 days. If you have more questions about that, Mr. True should be able to help you with that. Ms. Cope, is there anything further we need to address for the record today?
No, thank you.
Mr. True?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Ms. Stefan, you are remanded to the custody of the county at this time.
Well, that took a turn. The sentencing for Miss Stefan was anything but routine, with the court, the attorneys, and the defendant herself all grappling with how best to handle a case colored by a history of assaultive conduct, contested facts, and possible underlying mental health concerns. Judge George Mertz began by clarifying that he wasn't relitigating the facts of the incident but wanted to ensure the pre-sentence report's details were accurate. Defense attorney Richard Trush noted a couple of factual adjustments, mainly credit for 20 days served instead of 3 and a quibble over whether a later felony could be called prior. The prosecution, however, focused less on technical corrections and more on Stefan's track record. The prosecutor recalled past cases, noting a pattern of denying responsibility and blaming others, and expressed doubts about her suitability for probation. Trush acknowledged that Stefan struggles in court, describing what he believed could be a trauma response freezing up when faced with difficult choices, and admitted he was torn between recommending probation or a straight jail sentence. When given the floor, Stefan offered her own version of events, denying she punched or kicked the other party and painting herself as the one under attack. Judge Mertz listened but made it clear he heard a full denial of responsibility, not just for this case but for past incidents as well. He noted her record of assaultive offenses, some resulting in jail time, Others dismissed and voiced concern that probation would likely set her up for failure at this stage. His conclusion was blunt: continued behavior like this will only lead to progressively longer jail terms. In the end, the judge imposed a 6-month sentence in the county jail, with credit for 20 days served, along with fines and costs. The tone throughout was a mix of exasperation and realism, acknowledging that mental health may be a factor, but also underscoring that denial and repeated offenses carry consequences. It was a pointed reminder that in Judge Mertz's courtroom, failing to take responsibility is a fast track to losing the court's patience. If you found this hearing insightful, consider subscribing, hitting the bell, and letting me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read everyone.